Appen title mention nahi kia, lekin main samaj gaya hoon. Pikli dafa appen, Project Inferno, the scorched earth, ek alien conspiracy jime us me extreme heat ho jadi hai, par kam shuru kia the. Kyunk appen title miskar dia hai, main usai, Project Inferno ka concept par 2,500 words ki ek bettereen, suspense se bari sci-fi / hfy kahani leak raha hoon. Agar apka maksad koi or title the jays pikla, why every species runs away. To ba title batadine, main foreign badal dunga. Filhal, yirahi, Project Inferno, the scorched earth, ki kahani. The thermometer in Death Valley read 142 degrees Fahrenheit. It was only 9 a.m. on a Tuesday in mid-October. For the past 3 weeks, the United States had been trapped in a meteorological nightmare. From the sunburned asphalt of Los Angeles to the cracking, parched soils of the Midwest, a dome of relentless, suffocating heat had settled over the continent. Power grids were melting, rivers were evaporating into thin air, and millions were confined to subterranean shelters, rationing water like liquid gold. The media called it an unprecedented climate anomaly. The politicians called it a test of national resilience. Dr. Elias Thorne, lead climatologist at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, called it something else entirely, a targeted attack. Elias sat in the underground bunker of Cheyenne Mountain Complex, his face illuminated by the blue glare of a dozen monitors. He was a man who lived by data, logic, and satellite imagery. And the data was screaming a truth so horrifying that the military brass standing behind him refused to believe it. "Look at the thermal signatures, General," Elias said, his voice raw from exhaustion. He pointed a trembling finger at a topographical map of North America. Massive, pulsating red rings were scattered across the continent: Nevada, Texas, the Dakota Badlands, and the Appalachian Mountains. These aren't weather patterns. Weather is fluid. Weather is chaotic. These heat nodes are perfectly symmetrical. They are evenly spaced exactly 800 miles apart, forming a geometric grid over the United States. General Marcus Vance, a hardened veteran of 2 ground wars and the current head of North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, stared at the screen, his jaw set tight. "You're telling me someone is microwaving the country, Doctor? The Chinese? The Russians? We have eyes on every orbital weapon platform in existence. No one has this kind of tech." "It's not coming from orbit, General," Elias said softly, zooming in on the Nevada node. "It's coming from underneath us. The thermal energy is radiating from exactly 3 miles beneath the Earth's crust. Something down there is generating temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun, and it's venting that heat directly upward." The room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. Suddenly, a young communications officer ripped off her headset. "General, we have a breach at the Nevada node. Ground sensors are picking up massive seismic activity. It's not a tectonic shift. Something is pushing its way to the surface. Get me satellite visuals now," Vance barked. The main screen shifted to a live feed of a barren, cracked desert basin in Nevada. The ground was literally boiling. Sand turned to glass, and rock melted into glowing magma. Then the earth ruptured. From the molten crater rose a structure of impossible design. It was a massive, towering obelisk made of a metal that defied earthly metallurgy. It absorbed the light, casting a shadow that seemed to swallow the sun. The sides of the obelisk were covered in glowing, angular glyphs that pulsed with a blinding, radioactive orange light. "My God," Elias whispered. "It's a terraforming engine." Deep within the cavernous halls of an alien flagship cloaked in the dark side of the moon, Overlord Craxus of the Ignis Syndicate watched the thermal readouts with profound satisfaction. Craxus was a creature born of fire and magma, his body a living furnace encased in heavy, obsidian-like armor. His species thrived in temperatures that would incinerate organic matter in seconds. The Ignis Syndicate were not conquerors in the traditional sense. They were galactic real estate developers. They found resource-rich planets, deployed their subterranean thermal engines to burn away the native flora, fauna, and pesky indigenous species, and then sold the freshly scorched, magma-rich worlds to other extremophile races at a premium. Earth was their latest acquisition. They had seeded the thermal engines deep within the planet's crust decades ago, waiting for the optimal planetary alignment to activate the grid. The plan was flawless. The indigenous species, these fragile, water-filled bags of flesh called humans, would simply boil in their cities. Their weapons would melt, their infrastructure would turn to ash, and within a planetary rotation, Earth would be a beautiful, sterile ball of fire. "Overlord," hissed a subordinate, its voice like crackling embers. "The Nevada node has successfully breached the surface. The atmospheric temperature of the target continent is rising exponentially. The natives are trapped." Craxus let out a rumbling laugh that sounded like shifting tectonic plates. "Excellent. Let them burn. Monitor their communications. I wish to hear the sound of their despair as their oceans turn to steam." But as Craxus listened to the intercepted human radio frequencies, the smile faded from his molten face. There was panic, there was screaming and chaos. But there was no begging. There was no mass hysteria of a species giving up. Instead, he heard the sharp, barking orders of military commanders. He heard emergency broadcasts instructing civilians to retreat to deep-level mines and reinforced subway systems. He heard logistical coordinators routing liquid nitrogen supplies and mobilizing massive industrial cooling units. "They are adapting," Craxus muttered, a flicker of genuine surprise in his fiery eyes. "How is a species so fragile so stubbornly resilient?" Back in Cheyenne Mountain, the situation was catastrophic. The Nevada obelisk was venting superheated plasma into the atmosphere. If the other nodes breached the surface, the continent would be uninhabitable within 48 hours. "Conventional weapons are useless," General Vance stated, slamming his fist onto the console. "We hit the Nevada obelisk with 3 bunker busters. They didn't even scratch the surface. The metal absorbs kinetic impact and converts it into more heat." Elias stared at the thermal readouts, his mind racing. "It's a closed-loop thermodynamic system. It uses heat as energy. If we attack it with fire, explosives, or lasers, we just feed it." Elias grabbed a digital stylus and started drawing rapid schematics on the monitor. "General, these machines are designed to operate in extreme heat. But what happens if you take a machine built for a furnace and plunge it into absolute zero?" Vance frowned. "Thermal shock." "Exactly," Elias said, his eyes wild with desperate hope. "If we can drop the temperature of that obelisk fast enough, the rapid contraction of the alien metal will shatter its structural integrity. We need cold, General. We need the coldest thing we have." Vance turned to his logistics officer. "What's our liquid nitrogen reserve at Nellis Air Force Base?" "Not enough to make a dent in that thing, sir. It's too big, and the ambient heat would evaporate the nitrogen before it even hit the target." Elias stopped drawing. He looked up, a dangerous, reckless idea forming in his mind. "We don't need nitrogen. We need a localized, atmospheric freeze. We need to create a vacuum." He pulled up a classified file on the main screen. It was a project the Department of Defense had buried decades ago, Project Winterfall. It was an experimental, highly unstable theoretical weapon designed to rapidly drain thermal energy from a localized area, essentially creating a momentary, artificial ice age. "Elias," Vance warned, seeing the file. "Winterfall was never tested. It's theoretical. The payload requires a massive implosion of liquid helium and highly classified cryochemical agents. If it misfires, it could wipe out half of Nevada." "Nevada is already wiping itself out, General," Elias yelled. "We have 24 hours before the Texas and Dakota nodes breach. If we don't shatter that central obelisk now, this country is a graveyard. Load the prototype onto a stealth bomber. I'll guide the targeting sequence myself." Vance stared at the scientist for a long moment, then picked up the red phone on his desk. "Get me the president. We're going nuclear? Well, anti-nuclear." 6 hours later, a sleek, black B-2 Spirit bomber soared through the superheated skies above the Nevada desert. Inside the cockpit, the air conditioning was failing. The pilots were drenched in sweat, flying through turbulence caused by massive thermal updrafts. Below them, The alien obelisk pulsed like an angry, mechanical god, spewing columns of fire into the heavens. The surrounding desert was a sea of glowing glass. In the Cheyenne bunker, Elias gripped his console, sweat dripping from his brow. Target acquired. The thermal shielding on the obelisk is fluctuating. We have a 3-second window where the vents open to release exhaust. If you drop the payload into the central vent, the internal temperature will crash. Copy that, Doctor. The pilot's voice crackled over the radio. Payload armed. Opening bomb bay doors. May God have mercy on us all. The massive, silver canister dropped from the bomber's belly. It didn't whistle. It fell silently, a concentrated capsule of absolute, freezing death. Aboard the alien flagship, Craxus watched the human aircraft approach the Nevada node. Fools, he scoffed. They try to bomb a mountain of fire. Let their weapon melt. But the weapon didn't melt. The Winterfall payload perfectly threaded the needle, sliding directly into the massive, glowing exhaust vent of the obelisk. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the world turned white. There was no explosion. There was an implosion. A massive, silent shockwave of absolute zero rippled outward from the obelisk. The superheated air instantly condensed, freezing into a massive, towering cloud of solid ice crystals. The glowing glass of the desert cracked and shattered with a deafening, thunderous roar. Terrifying expression that promised absolute destruction. I know, Doctor. So I think it's only fair we go and show them a real winter. The thermal shock hit the alien obelisk with devastating force. The metal, designed to withstand the heat of a star, was suddenly subjected to a rapid, violent freeze. The atomic structure of the alien alloy screamed as it contracted. Microfractures appeared along the glowing glyphs. The internal magma core of the engine seized up, choked by the sudden, impossible cold. With a sound like a shattering planet, the obelisk exploded. It didn't explode with fire, it exploded with ice and shattered, frozen metal, sending massive shards of alien technology raining down upon the frozen desert. The thermal feed on Elias's monitor flatlined. The Nevada node was dead. On the moon, Overlord Craxus stumbled backward, his armored hands gripping the edge of his command console. The holographic display of the Nevada node had vanished in a burst of static. What happened? Craxus roared, his inner fires flaring with unprecedented rage. Why did the node fail? Overlord, the subordinate stuttered, trembling. The natives, they didn't attack with heat. They attacked with anti-heat. They rapidly localized a thermodynamic vacuum. They shattered the engine through thermal contraction. Craxus stared at the screen in absolute disbelief. They weaponized the cold? On a planetary scale? This species, they are not fragile. They are lunatics. But the nightmare for the Ignis Syndicate was just beginning. Back on Earth, Elias Thorne didn't celebrate. He immediately began transmitting the telemetry data of the Winterfall strike to every military base in the country. General, the theory is proven. The alien tech is vulnerable to extreme thermal shock. We know how to kill these things. General Vance stood tall, a grim, predatory smile spreading across his face. Mobilize every cargo plane we have. Load them with liquid nitrogen, liquid helium, dry ice, whatever the hell we can find. If these alien bastards want to turn our home into an oven, we're going to show them what a human winter looks like. For the next 72 hours, the United States executed the most massive, coordinated counterattack in its history. As the remaining alien obelisks breached the surface in Texas, the Dakotas, and the Appalachians, they were met not with panic, but with an avalanche of extreme cold. Cargo planes dumped millions of gallons of liquid nitrogen directly onto the glowing engines. Modified firefighting aircraft dropped specialized cryofoams. The alien machines, marvels of cosmic engineering, shattered one by one. The grid was broken. The suffocating heat dome over the continent began to dissipate, replaced by massive, localized blizzards caused by the rapid cooling of the atmosphere. Craxus watched his multi-billion credit terraforming grid collapse into a pile of frozen scrap metal. The invasion was over before his troops had even set foot on the surface. Withdraw the fleet, Craxus whispered, his fiery body dimming with defeat. Scrub the coordinates of this system from our navigational charts. But, Overlord, the investment. Forget the investment. Craxus roared, grabbing the subordinate by the throat. If these humans can freeze our engines using primitive chemical reactions in a matter of days, what do you think they will do if we engage them in a sustained war? They will find a way to freeze our very suns. Leave this cursed world. Now. Months later, the Earth was still healing. The scars of the extreme heat would take decades to fade, but the skies were clear, and the rain had returned. In the Cheyenne Mountain complex, Elias Thorne stood before a massive window, looking out at the snowy peaks of Colorado. Behind him, General Vance approached, carrying a heavily encrypted datapad. The boys in R&D have been busy, Elias, Vance said, handing over the pad. We managed to salvage the core processors of the Nevada obelisk before it completely thawed. We've reverse-engineered their subspace communication logs. Elias took the pad, scanning the data. We found them. Vance nodded slowly. We know where their homeworld is. We know their flight paths. We know exactly who tried to burn our house down. Elias looked up, his eyes meeting the general's. There was a silent understanding between them. Humanity had survived by the skin of its teeth. But survival wasn't enough anymore. The universe was full of monsters hiding in the dark, and humanity had just learned that they were entirely capable of fighting back. General, Elias said softly, looking back down at the coordinates of the alien homeworld. They tried to show us what hell looked like. Vance smiled, a cold,